Hello, everybody, and welcome to the True North Audio Podcast. I am Kiko. Joining me for this, 2-year in the making revisit of the podcast, we have our old, previous two-time guest, Vasily, Peak Divide, and new guest, Jeremy, Red Means Recording, Leashes. Name any other projects you want to promote here?
I guess that's pretty much it. I got the YouTube channel, Red Means Recording. I have my own music under Jeremy Blake. And then I do have the project Leashes with Erin Inc., who has her own solo project, which is going to have their first EP coming out soon. So that's exciting.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I'll be keeping an ear out. I like all the Leashes stuff well enough as well. So anything else out of that camp is good by me.
Yeah, we were talking at FWA about what we want to do with that project, and we have some ideas for new stuff. It's kind of like a semi-conceptual project in terms of what we want to say in it. So we want to make sure that we have a good idea before we get started.
Up until this point, it's mostly just been from those OP1 videos, hasn't it? Is there any other tracks that were from anything, or is it just so far?
No, it's just been those. Yeah. And that is actually a bit of a complicator, not to get too into it, but there's a certain, overhead with those videos that adds a level of complexity to what otherwise would be just sitting down and writing a song. And so, it's like, is that what we want to do? We're just asking ourselves a bunch of questions.
No, that makes sense. I know you've said in the past that, doing those OP1 videos, it's not something you can just turn on and off like a tap. There's got to be a reason.
No,
something to talk about.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, having turned into my most popular YouTube video, which means the content that people expect, means that to an extent there was maybe a desire on the audience's part for them to be put out as content, in the kind of derogatory sense. But that's not how they work. They don't work like that. Most good videos don't work like that. You have to or most good stuff doesn't work like that. You don't just pump it out.
I wonder how much of that is left over from the era of 80s television, where you had scheduled programming and you had this sense of kind of consumerist regular expectations of output. And I wonder if that has bled over into, honestly, even the mid 2010s of YouTube. Because I'm noticing a lot of that has been changing across the environment. Kind of curious what your thoughts on that are. So
you're saying that you feel that an expectation was set of sort of regularity for YouTube, especially popular YouTube channels. I truly do blame the early popular YouTube channels like Mythical Morning and stuff like that for starting to ruin YouTube. I think that those, I every time I see them now, I cringe. All those old, like Smosh, all that shit. It's they got so big and they got such big followings and money started getting involved, and they started becoming television shows for lack of a better way of putting it. And it started to set this expectation of YouTube as basically a bunch of independent contractors making cable TV level shows. And I think that was a huge mistake. I think that YouTube has not recovered from that at all. And obviously, if you want to make a super obvious comparison now, Mr. Beast did his thing, and then he got a fucking Amazon Prime show. So it's it's that. I think that expectation of regularity and formularity, this concept of a channel will be successful, technically more successful, if it always delivers something the same in some way or another. It's something I struggle with personally a lot, because I am very not able to do that. So I take it personally that that's the expectation of the platform, that it's hey, you need to be the same, and you need to be consistent, and you need to have a vision, and it has to also be entertaining. I'm well, I'm fucked.
Yeah. No, I feel that with the OP1 videos especially are just so deeply personal. And every time I'm watching them, there's a real sense of like, this is someone putting their heart and soul into an experience they're having. This isn't just, oh, what if I just kind of had some thoughts and made a little video or whatever. And I put out that video at the beginning of the year where I stole your format and like made a patch and Vital.
Yeah.
And I experienced the same sort of thing when I was just trying to put together my thoughts, and it started journaling and started kind of snowballing. And it's like, I absolutely feel you on that. There's no way I'd be able to just sit down and do that again on a whim. I wouldn't be able to just like, oh, what are we talking about this week? I don't know. Let's, look up some silly.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could, right? Like you could allow yourself to just like free associate, and I suppose that could be a thing. I don't, and I think what's what you're saying now too is that we don't always have the energy to do that. I think the expectation of being a performer for YouTube is pretty ingrained in it. Like even some of the YouTubers that I really, really like, who I think are very chill and don't have brainworms like about the thing, are clearly performing. Like there's this really fantastic video game essayist called Grimbeard. Who are you familiar with Grimbeard at all? Okay. Oh, don't worry about it. He's an industrial musician who does these videos about video games. Lots of really not popular stuff. Like he'll go back and do like Blood Rain or System Shock 1 or something like that. And those are like more of the popular games that he actually talks about. And he clearly he's got little skits and vignettes and stuff, but it's chill. And so I'm kind of a hypocrite here saying that I think being it's not a very humanizing thing, but then when people actually pull it off in a way that I like, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So it's like, I guess I'm a hypocrite.
I watched yours and Keith's video talking about that very recently. And I think the two of you really get into it in a really good way, since both of you have that history of, I mean, not to insult you, but of being professional YouTubers. But yeah. I think that, you talked about the Jacksepticeye thing in that one. You talked about when he was on that lie detector and he said at the time that he didn't really like Mr. Beast and he felt like he'd kind of ruined the platform. You talked about that, the Mr. Beast effect on YouTube. And of course, you're saying Mythical Morning, some of that stuff, which is even older, than the Mr. Beast sort of format. Yeah. And being stuck in that professionally, I can imagine I have 300 subscribers or something like that. So it's not really the numbers game on my end.
There's a lot of there's a lot of factors that go into how the making videos on YouTube can feel like a slog. And you're fighting your own sort of energy levels and inspiration levels and your ability to come up with ideas and execute on them in a way that you think is going to be impactful and maybe fun if that's what you want to do. You want to make a good video, basically. And you don't want to make a video unless you're like a content farm about something that you don't care about, because otherwise, kind of what's the point? So you're fighting that. And with that comes, I think this is to an extent like being a musician who writes music for an album or multiple albums. Like you want to feel like you're like engaged in the process, I guess. And to do that, some people will actually really enjoy repeating a formula. Like they, at least for a while, they will get into it and really refine it and have fun with it. And through the process of having a formula at all, they will be able to play with the formula and kind of do weird little things here and there. I think Grimbeard is an example of that with his weird skits. But unfortunately, I can't even stick to that. I am always meandering, and I think that makes it difficult for the audience to know what they're actually going to get when they click on one of my videos sometimes. And that's before you even throw the whole furry thing into it. So it's it's a really antagonistic platform, I think, to people reach a certain level where there's the expectation of regularity and consistency start getting put on them. I think that's where things start to get a bit complicated.
No, absolutely. And I mean, there's a certain point at which you have a sort of a saturation level where you've reached your max audience, and you'll never really know what that is, and it can grow as more people discover the platform and find you. But I think that there's probably, I would assume, a level at which your own authenticity becomes a hindrance because it scares off the kind of edges of that, the people who, you know, are kind of into what you're doing, but they're not like into you authentically being you to the fullest extent, you know?
Which is dehumanizing as fuck.
Yeah.
That's it's like being in this environment that's been so saturated and so commodified, where you cannot be like authentically yourself or feel comfortably to be authentically yourself sucks. Like that is not a like. I wish that there was more communities on YouTube that pushed forward the human factor of like making videos, right? I even hesitate to say content creation. Like I hate the term.
Right.
And the idea that you can't be like, people are almost, there's a huge stigma to putting any kind of personality into these videos, because it's like, oh, you're putting too much into your videos. It should be this videos. It should be this mask. And, that creates a whole circle of problems.
If you have a personality, they want you to be kind of normative. They want you to fit into
exactly
what's expected of, you know, the average normal person or what, you know.
So I actually don't think that's it. I think that there is I think if you could set an expectation, then that expectation will be expected. I think I can just say ContraPoints, and like hopefully you both will know what I'm talking about. Like ContraPoints is not what audience, but she does not present as normal, and she purposefully, I think, tries to be a little antagonistic towards normality, which I appreciate. But the expectation is like, I'm going to watch a ContraPoints video and it's going to be weird and there's going to be costumes and all this kind of stuff. There's an expectation. If you start your video, I think, and if you start your videos, your YouTube career gets popular because you're like a pair of hands playing electronic music. There's really nothing attached to that from an identity standpoint. Like there's nothing there. It's the most nothing that could be. And so I think that to an extent, the OP1 videos were a very potent example of a anonymizing sort of concept that a lot of people could project onto. And once I started involving myself and as a person and really started talking about things that I cared about, like the Spitfire transphobia stuff or politics or consumerism or all that stuff, and then started using the VR chat thing, it all starts to become very...
You broke the magic.
There's a lot of signifiers that now people have to sift through. I broke the magic. Yeah. Very good way of putting it. So I think it's complicated. I think you can be a freak on YouTube, and I think people love watching freaks. But I think you probably need to start out that way. But then I think you need to be very like upfront. So my channel, there's been multiple times when I thought about splitting it off to other things. I did so for just straight up modular stuff because of the class divide, I think, between who can get into modular and who can't, and how it just wasn't that interesting to most people. But yeah, it's like, could Red Beans Recording just be a channel that like every 2 months or something an OP1 video came out and that'd be fine? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. That wouldn't really pay the bills in terms of like driving people towards, one-on-one lessons or anything like that. It wouldn't be a good front of shop, so to speak.
I remember you and Keith talked about that as well. The kind of the outliers, like H-Bomber guy who just sort of once a year drops a video kind of about whatever he decides to talk about. And for some reason it doesn't break the algorithm. But then, I mean, maybe that is that. Maybe the expectation is just, hey, we just got blessed with an H-Bomber Guy video, and who knows what
Basically,
it'll be, you know? What is it going to be this time? Let's see.
Yeah, I have thoughts on that too, but I don't really need to get into it. Like, I think it's a very privileged place to be, and I am jealous, I think, first and foremost, of that kind of thing, because what does he do? Like, when he's not, like, what the fuck is he doing all day?
We'll find out he has a really awful, boring day job and barely makes any money from it somehow. I hope not.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
That would obviously suck.
No, I mean, I get you on that too. It's like there's a level of privilege that comes from being in the position you are where you can make this work, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. That doesn't mean that there's not still something that could be improved or, you know, that you would like to be improved. It's, I mean, just staying grounded about it's really all that matters, I think, on my end, you know, is.
Unfortunately, I think that's one of the hardest things to do when your job is internet, because you don't deal with people. I don't deal with people, you know, like, so it's like, not real people. This is probably the most human interaction outside video calls that I have. I think this is probably a problem that a lot of people have, in the modern day, that it's becoming, I think, more common to have most of your sort of social interactions through, a platform as opposed to in person, just for sheer numbers amount, right? Like, I'm not saying, oh no, everyone's on their screens. I'm just saying, like, the amount of interactions you have access to in online far outweigh your ability to match those actions in real life. And I think that can be a weird thing.
It's definitely changed the way that we interact with people. I mean, like, the three of us here, Vasily's local to me. We've hung out in person plenty. You know, the last two episodes we did together were in person, either in my place or at Clara's place. You know, but there is, even then, even with the people that you know in person, physically, or who are close enough to you to be around you, there's still a lot of that personal relationship that ends up happening online just because that's how it's become these days. And there is definitely something a little bit different to the kind of pace or style of conversation you have when you're just sitting in a room looking at each other, I'm just like laid out on the couch hanging out versus, you know, sitting here staring at my screen watching the meters bounce on Logic as we speak, you know.
I'm downloading scores from MuseScore while we talk for my
wonderful
video on Melody.
I was watching the Heinbach video right before we started.
Stuff. Oh, what was he talking about?
I think he called it the harmonophone or dual harmonophone or something. It's like this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's another one of the weird, crazy instruments he's found. It's a what is it? It's like a fan organ mixed with a like tube synthesizer. So it's just like really odd instrument. But yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have been doing that if we were hanging out in person. We probably would have. I mean, everyone was getting breakfast. We probably would have gotten together and made something to eat. We probably had pancakes or something, you know.
You can watch the Heinbach video while you're making breakfast with friends or something. I don't know. Yeah. Obviously, things are different, but I'm just saying that, like, the relationships that you have, the concept of parasociality, where, you know, someone as an audience member or a consumer of some media will develop a type of relationship with the person on screen or through the radio or whatever, or musician, where they think they know them based on the content that they put out. There's sort of an inverse and opposite sort of mutated version of that, where I have a concept of a very weird, amorphous, loose concept of my audience, and I'm doing air quotes right here, that is sort of this, like, it's kind of monstrous. Like, it's this terrifying thing that even through the constant positive energy that the Discord that we are in of mine that, like, says otherwise, it's antagonistic, and it's like, it's scary, like, because it's like it's just it's weird. And that, I don't know how people deal with that as things get bigger. I guess they just don't care anymore. Like, I don't think Mr. Beast thinks of an audience at all. I just think he thinks of how statistics will work based on certain things he'll do. And I think that can be freeing if you have somebody as an intermediary between you and people that can abstract the concept of people for you and just tell you kind of like, well, if we do this, it'll do well.
Yeah.
I think that's very powerful. But also it's really not an option.
Yeah, you kind of have to reach a certain point with that usually. And it's probably, I mean, imagine too, it's like either you're somebody is like me who's a lot more kind of introverted and, you know, doesn't like the idea of being seen all the time. And the idea of lots of eyes on you is kind of the being known by strangers, but not really being known is probably a very anxiety inducing experience.
Not really.
Or the other way around, you're a very social person, and now you're constantly burdened by this kind of constant sense of all these people who you'll never really know, you know? You can't meet, you can't really satisfy, and there's a sort of expectation that you have to meet for all these people because you want to be very sociable, but it's just too big, you know? It's just in a scope beyond your ability to comprehend.
You're only getting 25% of like
that's
real
why,
human
like,
interaction behind every interaction. Yeah.
There's you I don't read comments anymore. Like I will pop in now and then to like maybe see a comment. Maybe I'll like it really depends, but I don't read them because the positive comments don't do anything to me anymore. Like on YouTube, at least specifically. And obviously if I see a negative comment, then like my day is ruined. So it's like, I think you said something really interesting. You said, you can't satisfy them. You can't make them happy and you can't know them. I think honestly, it's that last part that really kind of gets to you after a while. If you feel like you're missing human connection in your life, or you feel like you don't have enough of it, the absolute worst way that you can try to recapture that is through making content that other people consume and then maybe comment on. I think it's like the worst way that you could do that. Because it's like it does not connect. Like it is transferred and transformed through the ending of creation and then putting it out there. At that point, all your intention and all your like concept of what it might have been is now out of your hands. And people will now consume it. They'll bring their own view to it and all that kind of stuff. They may have a reaction that is exactly like what you wanted, but it still doesn't like directly connect to you. And the only thing that it can create is numbers going up. Like that's the only really thing that it can do, unless you specifically have a kind of call to action of some kind that involves real world something. But I'll argue this. All of the times that like you do something for charity or something like that, that's also just a line going up. And it's a line going up for good, but it's still like, it feels like that's all we can fucking do. Like, or we can just make lines go up.
I mean, there's another thing about it too, which is there's the celebrity culture, and then there's always going to be that kind of counterculture, that anti-celebrity culture, whatever, the Kurt Cobain experience. But the thing is, there's always going to be a saturation point.
That's my favorite ride at Disneyland, by the way. Have you been on that one at Universal Studios? The Kurt Cobain
Is it VR?
I'm joking. There's not a real thing. It just sounds so terrible.
You with lots of drugs and hallucinogens at the beginning, and then bombard you with press and questions all the time about your personal life. No, I mean there's something about it where there was a genuine sort of counterculture, a genuine sort of dislike of celebrity and of fame and of attention.
Right.
But there is a point at which that draws an audience that, while it is countercultural in its intent, it becomes enough of an audience that it just becomes another form of fame. It grows beyond its usefulness in a way. And it sort of loses all meaning, which is really rough. And Yeah, I mean, there's sort of no real good answer there, which is what sucks about it. You know, have you go on?
I will say something more to that. What happens with all of this stuff is that I'm going to say the word capitalism. It has a way of consuming and making safe everything that could stand up to it in any way whatsoever. Like, and it's one of its major powers. It's one of its like superpowers. It will consume and regurgitate things that normally would be used to go against it.
I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
Definitely with you on that. I mean, it's like the skate culture into MTV effect. It becomes bigger and bigger, and then it ferments into 60% just ridiculousness with Rob Dyrdek. You know, it's just the hot topic rebel effect. You know, it's impossible to escape in some ways, which is the thing that really sucks about it. It takes the meaning out of everything. Have you ever seen the episode of Bluey? I think it's called Stickbird. Stickbird.
Which one was that? I've watched almost all the Bluey. I think I have seen it.
Yeah, they go to the beach and Bandit's all kind of... He's feeling really down. He's definitely distracted by something. Something's kind of upsetting him, and he's not in the moment, and... It's been a minute, so I can't remember. Either Bluey or Bingo makes like a little kind of stickbird, like a little like statue on the beach with like a cool stick she finds. And Bandit, he's kind of so distracted that he never really gets to see it. And as they're kind of walking off, some other kid comes up and takes the stick, and the whole thing falls apart. And his daughter's really upset, and he has to kind of apologize for not really being able to see it. But one of the points he makes is sometimes when you put something beautiful out into the world, it's no longer yours to control, you know? And I have to imagine.
Oh, wow. Fuck Bluey. Jesus.
It really hits hard, which of course is the power of Bluey, is that it gets to the core of it in a big way. But terrifying. I have to imagine that that's probably the creator working through a lot of that himself. That I have to imagine on some level, that's him, like...
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And you know, like, I guess with one of the things that like really kind of blows my mind about Bluey as a show is that like they do have all of these things to say, and they figure out a way to do so in the most wonderful way. And I'm like, how do you... I mean, I'm assuming they have a team of writers at this point to an extent. I haven't looked at the credits for the show. But it's like, how do you sit... Like, you think about the writing room for that. It's like, so I want to do one about the parents... Everybody dies. I want to make one about everybody dying. How can we make something about everybody dying and make it, like, subversive and beautiful at the same time? It's like... And that's like, like it just, they keep on doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they know how to abstract like a complex topic and being able to communicate that while also having this surface level presentation that's really digestible for a younger audience. And it's really beautiful.
It's really human.
Yeah. It is. I truly love
I was talking to my guitarist this morning about that, and he's the one who kind of pushed me to finally watch it. I recommended it to him, and then he came back to me and he's like, no, you should also watch this. It's really good. It's like, all right. Yeah. And he was saying that one of our friends has moments where he'll be like, he'll have a moment where he's thinking about if he's involved enough in his kid's life or what he should do, for his kid. And he always just sits down and is like, okay, what would Bandit do in a situation like this? And
Bandit's such a good...
He really is. I think the fact that he is an imperfect character adds to that a little bit too, because what makes him a good role model is you get to see him being imperfect a lot of the time. You see those moments like he's out of the moment, he's distracted, he's not there for his daughter when his daughter needs him, or he's, the episode where he's, playing a little too rough and scares the kid and, has to be like, you can tell me, like, speak up, talk to me, if I'm making you feel worried or uncomfortable. I think that's a really cool show. We talked about the episode where Chili and Bandit were really hungover, and they wanted to play a game, and they're like, as long as we don't have to move, whatever game we play, we don't have to move. And he was saying, my guitarist was saying, I don't think you'd ever see Peppa Pig's parents hungover in any episode of that show.
No,
but it is that humanity that makes it so good. It is very real, and I think that's what resonates with people in a huge way, especially people
the
who
surface area for emotional maturity to be like developed and talked, like discussed in that show, which you don't see a lot in a lot of kids shows, where like adults have their like flaws as well as their pros, and like there's a lot of kids shows where adults are just portrayed as like assholes, or they're portrayed as just better as the kids. They're the ones who are making the world function. It's like, no, they're just people. They're figuring out their own shit.
They're the perfect angels who overlook everything and make sure things are always right. Or they're, the antagonists. They're the bad guys you got to kind of like fight back against or whatever. Right. But yeah, I think it's refreshing to see a piece of art that feels very human in that way. Especially something that popular.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think a lot of people, like adults, resonate with it because it's like, oh, wow, like I'm seeing what to an extent could be considered a like ideal family unit, like it really does present a certain fantasy for those of us who maybe did not have a super chill time growing up with our family. And there's a very comforting thing about that. That I think
a lot of people I know, I think especially in the queer community, since a lot of queer people have such difficult relationships with their parents, if they have one at all, is that it does feel like it's this kind of therapy for a lot of people. It's almost this like,
absolutely.
Like kind of the way the Mr. Rogers for a lot of kids was a character who could sit down and have like a hard topic discussion with you and not talk down to you. I think it's another place where somebody can look at something and see a little bit of something they didn't have, or a little bit of something they needed or wished they had growing up, and they can kind of get a little bit of that guidance in a, I guess, safe way, maybe, or possibly even just, something that's comforting.
I think it also could help you. I think it can also help, like, you, if it can be difficult to remember things correctly. I think all of us, understand that memory is not perfect. And so I think there is another aspect to Bluey where it's like, it kind of can, if you did have positive interactions with your parents at some point, like it can help you remember that, that you did. And that like, that if they loved you, if they did love you, that like, that was there, even though things were hard. And that, as you said earlier, like it portrays Bandit and Chili like as not perfect. And I think all of us probably had a moment in our lives where we were like, oh fuck, our parents are just people. Yeah. Oh shit. Like, and that's like really, really, really a crazy feeling to have. And so this kind of contextualizes that, flattens it for people of a certain age to look at and say, oh, that's right. Yep. I remember now that like, my parents aren't perfect, and there was good to be had, even though like, things weren't perfect.
Memory and nostalgia is kind of weird like that. I was talking about this with Vasily somewhat recently about the kind of the way that nostalgia messes with your perception of your past as well. As I think back to periods in my own life which were very happy, or that I feel very fondly about. And when I think about them more critically, I realize that sometimes these are some of the worst periods of my life, some of the worst years of my life. And I don't know if it's just that, like, the contrast of how bad things were made those better moments feel even better because they felt like such an island of relief, or if it's just that, something about the joy sticks with you differently than the trauma or just the negativity of those experiences or that period in your life overall. I think in some way,
I have thoughts on that. I think so are you saying that like you would have you have a nostalgia for a period of time that was like actually really rough, but you remember it fondly? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I have a period of like a couple periods in my life where that happened. And to me, the reason that they're remembered so strongly and with these rose-colored glasses is because they were moments where you were like very present. Like you were like extremely in the moment, and like things were probably very pregnant with possibility of some kind. Like you knew that you had like choices to make, or that change was happening, or something like that. I think it's more like they're charged, and therefore they stick with you, and your brain does weird things to them.
Yeah, I think that's probably probably it, or something similar to that. I think something about the contrast of it as well. It sticks in your head because it was such a bright point at a dark moment that it kind of leaves an impact of some kind on you as a result. And I think that being more aware, being more alert, being more in the moment, or, kind of paying attention to your surroundings or whatever, maybe that like sort of underlying fight or flight that might be going on depending on what's happening in your life kind of really cements that moment, maybe. Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not a psychologist,
I'm not
obviously, so I can't speak with any level of expertise on this, but I can foresee that being.
Nostalgia is interesting because it's you're ruminating on a feeling on a time where you had less experience than you do now. So like a lot of times I have nostalgia back to like high school or college. I think of fondly, but like kind of echoing what Kiko was saying, that it's an island. This was like, that was a period of time where I was directionless and depressed and didn't actually know what the fuck I was doing with my life.
Yeah.
And for the first time in like 6 years ago, and the first time I've actually felt like I've had purpose working on game dev and being like a part of like Peak Divide. Looking back to those points, I was like, I didn't have anything. I wasn't doing anything. These were learning experiences, certainly, but these weren't. I didn't have purpose, and I have complicated feelings on nostalgia because of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Same. Yeah. I think it's I think very dimly of nostalgia.
Same.
And I actually kind of get worried when I have a nostalgic thought. Like, I try really hard to not have that. Like, I don't have a better way to put it. It's like, I really do not like nostalgia. I think it's a dangerous and debilitating concept. And I really try to stay away.
It gives you the desire to seek something that was never real, and to chase a sort of imaginary version of your past that in some ways can kind of distract you both from your present, but also from the reality of your past in a way. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You're just like, rewriting.
It's important to not mystify your past.
Yeah. You're mythologicalizing and rewriting your past. And hey, guess what fascism likes to do? That's like one of the
rewrite the fucking past.
That's exactly it though. I mean, that's exactly it. It's the chasing fond memories of things that were never there. There's so much that comes with that, whether it's an individual thing or, a whole broad thing. And it also kind of gets into the way that, like, when you're having some of the best moments of your life, you don't really know that they're the best. And it's funny too, because there's moments that do feel like some of your best moments where you look back on and go, no, it was all right. That was fun. I enjoyed that, and then you'll have moments that were just so completely benign that you can look back on and go, that really was a great moment in my life that that I have warm memories of. I mean, I think back to my first couple years when I was living up in Alaska, when I first moved out of the house, just finished high school, it's 2011. I'm playing Minecraft in my living room on the kitchen counter, sitting on my stool for like 10 hours because I don't have a chair. I've got I've just finished listening to like a Yogscast, like podcast episode or whatever. I'm listening to Rhinestone Eyes by Gorillaz. It's a great track, and Plastic Beach is a great album. Yeah. And I know it came out like 2 years earlier, but it was that in that part of my life, you know? And then I sit down and I watch one of the DVDs my parents sent me of like various television or whatever that we were watching because I didn't have cables. I couldn't afford it. You know, I get that like warm feeling. I was unemployed. I was directionless.
Yeah.
For 8 months of that like year, I had no heat because I couldn't afford to pay my gas bill. I was living on a cheap mattress.
Okay. Like, from my perspective, as I've gotten older, I guess jaded is the easiest word to use, even though I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. We see more, we experience more, and we know more about, we see patterns in the world. We see how things repeat themselves. And unfortunately, a lot of stuff that gets repeated is not good. Yeah. Especially here in the US, we keep on getting opportunities to do better stuff and fix things, and the world keeps on showing us that that's not what it wants. And so it's in the past, while all that stuff was happening, I mean, I don't know what age, like around that time. Yeah. I mean, we were still bombing people. Terrible things were happening in the world. Like, you know, but we just didn't know about it as much. Like we didn't have as much insight from, if you want to make like a Bloodborne reference, like we didn't know as much as we did literally. And the more that you know, unfortunately, baby. The worse things get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I was going to point at one thing that probably that creates nostalgia is that you just know more than you did then. And the moment that you were in back then, you probably look back at not necessarily with like a feeling of warmth because of the situation you were in, but that you just were more innocent, like for better or worse.
I mean, I think that especially for your childhood, if you had a good childhood, because that's another thing that is going to be different person to person. Right. But yeah, I mean, I've told people before, there's that kind of cutoff of like it's kind of gone away, but there was the 90s kid meme, you know, for a while. And there was that kind of like, I was born in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid. But I think that the thing that I've told people a lot of the time, some of the younger people that I've like talked to about this is like, for me, being a 90s kid kind of requires that you really remember 9/11. Because in a lot of ways, being a 90s kid is an extremely American experience, for one. But it's the thing that being a 90s kid is, to me, is being a child with childlike wonder and innocence and that kind of lack of...
I don't know why I'm giggling so much at this. I'm just waiting for you to say 9/11. I'm like,
you understand. You see where I'm going with this because you understand what I'm saying. Like there's the thing that was made being a 90s kid was having childlike innocence and inexperience and that kind of just comfortable view of the world mixed with the end of the Soviet Union and the war on terror Bush era post 9/11 world. And it is that like there was this kind of weird sense of like it's all Sunday, you know, Sunday in the park, Saturday morning cartoons. It's, you know, bright, it's happy, it's poppy music that's really bouncy and fun. And of course, when you look at it, really,
it was that. It was that. Like it was all of that, but but it was also like realizing for the first time that like your country was so hated by a group of people, or depending on what your thoughts on 9/11 are, like that they would do something like this. Like, and of course, the only reason this was so shocking is because none of us paid attention to what was actually going on in other countries already, you know, like, so it was a big eye opener for a lot of us. And I don't think we've ever, I think everybody everybody gets a 9/11 like every day now. Like it's like a constant fucking barrage of little 9/11s, whether or not it's a school shooting or a new report on, how many people have died in Gaza, like, or Ukraine. Every day we get a new little 9/11, and I wonder how Zoomers and Gen Alpha are going to look back at this time in their, their lives. I'm assuming that the power of innocence will kind of extend to them regardless of the fact that they know more about the world, assume that they do, than we necessarily did. I think it's still a very powerful thing to have a brain of a teenager, like, or younger. I think that's or even in your early 20s. I think it's still something that like cannot be encroached upon to an extent.
I mean, the 80s. There's
at least, and God, I'm realizing I do want to make a quick thing. I'm saying like if you live in the first world and don't have like a if you live in America or another first world country, if you live somewhere else, then this is not true.
Right. But I mean, this is from the perspective of like a Western, like young mind, like plasticity, like that. And I think that's okay. That's okay to discuss like that because that is a relatable like experience to us. I don't like even growing up in a Slavic like household. I was under like different expectations, but I actually went through kind of a similar experience where it's just like, it's like, oh, grow up, go to college, get a job. Like I had a similar experience to how a lot of at least like younger millennials had.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, again, like the point I made too, the 90s kid experience was very much an American experience. It's, we talk about it, but kids other places had a very different 90s. There, like you said, there was stuff going on in the world the whole time. The 90s wasn't a bright, colorful sun, Saturday morning cartoon fruity snacks and bubblegum pop era. It even here
God,
the
I
90s was
so much. Thank
really
God the
sarcastic.
90s made those.
All the happy songs were actually about being really miserable and depressed. Half of the celebrities were addicted to drugs and couldn't seem to find happiness in any part of their life. Like even the things that seemed happy were not as happy as they really were. But I mean, it is one of those things where it is that naivety, that kind of disconnection from reality, and how magical it feels, especially when you look back on it and realize how genuinely unreal it was. How it kind of was this made up bubble that a lot of kids were just very fortunate to grow up in. And I mean, it's weird because it's so easy to, clamp onto that and try to get that back and want to go back to the way things were when they felt safe or comfortable to you, but that's not a real thing. You're trying to capture something that isn't real, and it's wrong.
If you want to follow that to its inevitable conclusion, then all of us really just want to crawl back into the womb. And once you start thinking of it that way, like you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I guess that's not really possible. So I might as well make the most.
You got to be in the moment. You got to think forward. And I mean, it's one of the hardest lessons I think to learn as an adult, and one you probably never really finish learning, is being present in the moment and moving forward. Going through those periods of change in your life and recognizing that you have to build the better future you want. You can't live in the past, and it's so hard not to, especially if you have comfortable little pockets in the past that feel so safe to you. But I mean, it's like there is something about that, like you were saying, the sort of way that innocence works for you as a child. I mean, there's so many like people I've known who are so nostalgic for the 80s, but the 80s was much more stark than the 90s. Yeah, I mean, the 80s was very austere.
So
the 80s was very beige and brown. The 80s was very kind of just depressed. And even the music was kind of depressed. The 80s, and sure, there was the happy, fun party music or whatever, but I mean, it's like, there's still people who have that like nostalgia for the 80s, even for all that.
I honestly wonder if these like, so I feel like there's a lot of like little traps that we can fall into to kind of like get either stuck in or release energy into in order to like not really be present. And I feel like that 80s nostalgia whole thing was like just such a potent trap for people to fall into, like that it felt contrived.
Yeah.
And I assuming it's really just because it got to the point where it became marketable and therefore became like a thing. The same thing happened with 90s stuff. And now like Gen X is having a moment where they're like, we were the generation that drank out of hoses and our parents never knew where we were and stuff. Like there's this like, I'm like right on the cusp of Gen X. I'm like 79. So I'm like, and so I'm like, I get to be the ultimate Gen X because I get to say, well, I'm not you guys, and I'm not millennial.
You get to be
so
stuck in that weird middle ground. Yeah. I got millennial friends who are like right on the very edge where they're like, yeah, I mean, like I'm basically Zoomer or millennial, but not really either one of you. I got my own like experience, you know. I mean, and like kids these days are having their like Frutiger era, you know, early 2000s. Everything's all bubbly and made out of weird clear plastic. Revival now, you know. Yeah,
I was really surprised to get fed. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to Frutiger Arrow, and I was like, what? I think there's actually, it got so popular that there might have actually been like a backlash subreddit, like a circle jerk subreddit about it. It's just really, really funny that that everything will become, the moment that it gets gravity to it, it starts to become like commodified in some way or another. I think the internet in modern times has just made it impossible for that not to happen.
You see a lot of examples of like consumerism, like trying to extend that nostalgia. Like you've seen the Microsoft posts with like the AI generated fucking like Frutiger arrow stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh God, I haven't. No, that's so stupid.
It's cringe as fuck.
Save yourself
let me see if I can find
the headache.
Yeah, save yourself.
I'm looking it up.
But yeah, they're tapping right into that like mindset and trying to like extend like, oh, remember this back then? You know, like remember like Microsoft, like, you know, remember Windows Vista, that kind of stuff.
I hated Vista. Vista was awful.
Oh God, they're so. So ugly too.
I mean, unstable.
Oh man, that's the thing that hurts. But it is the thing that really does drive home that point. Is like you can look at it and go, "We all hated it. We were there. Why are people nostalgic for Vista?" But I mean, it is just that. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. People will find a because it reminds them of that innocence. It's not because Vista was good. It never was good. It's not because like whatever jerk off weird.
It's because it happened then.
Weird cringe television we were watching in the 90s was like so much better than everything else. It's because it was there and we remember that. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's
always like, do you remember that? That's pretty much it. And then it does all kinds of weird ass things to your brain. It's pretty wild. The Frutiger Arrow subreddit is fun though. Like, the funny thing is like, I looked up Frutiger Arrow Microsoft and the first thing I got was a post from the subreddit saying Microsoft stopped making these. And it was like pictures of their feed.
I'm sorry.
Original Frutiger Arrow though was definitely a thing. And the funny thing is I'm looking over this. I hate this style so much. It's so fucking ugly. I cannot feel an inch of nostalgia for this. It does nothing for me. Which I guess is good. I hated it then and I hate it now.
Consistent.
I feel like it was just like common course learning for like Photoshop, like CS2 or something like that. And there's just like a style derivative from that common teaching that was like common in like colleges and late high school.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous. I mean, the thing, of course, about the sort of weird proliferation of media and experience and everything as well is that I'm trying to remember what it was. There's an old video game that I really like to play, and I'll play it sometimes just for old time's sake, but I make sure to make a point of not just playing it the way I used to. I make a point to like do something different with it. Like I'll find a mod for it or something to kind of give myself an experience that is a now in the moment experience. And I was talking to a friend of mine about, you know, creating a video game that's kind of in that style because it was a fun way to play. And I talked to him and I talked to my brother about this. And my brother mentioned a video he had seen about how you can't capture nostalgia in a video game because, you know, when you go back on a lot of these games, they're really jank, they control weird. There's so many little like quality of life things you just don't think about anymore. But the big thing more than anything is if you took the development team of Doom, like 1995 or 6 or whatever, like the original Doom, and you gave them the tools to make Doom Eternal, they wouldn't make Doom 1996. They would make Doom Eternal. They want to make, like, all of these exist as, you know, an exercise in trying to make a bigger, better, more exciting, cooler, whatever thing the developers have learned that they want to improve on. Nobody sat down at any point and said, this is the peak of gaming. There's no point in trying. None of us are going to get better. Why are we bothering?
There's definitely they definitely said the first thing. Like, if you don't think that they thought what they were making was the peak of gaming, go back and like check out like the publication stuff from back then. It's hilarious.
Graphics can't get better than
this. I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like it's like 3 polygons. It's like you've never seen graphics like this.
Warcraft came
it's like
out, and everyone
technically
was like, "This
correct.
is the best looking game that's ever been made. This is incredible."
And I love that. I think that's great. Like, I think gaming is such a fascinating medium for that specifically, because like there definitely was a suspension of, and maybe this ties into the nostalgia thing too, the suspension of disbelief that we participated in when we played a game with shittier graphics was, I think, and this is argument and this is not mine, like I've heard this from people and I sort of agree with it. It pulls us, we had to kind of get engaged with it a little bit more. Like you do fill in the blanks a little bit more. Like I just played through Doom the Dark Ages like 3 times, like, and I love that game to death. But like, I didn't have to like suspend my disbelief or immerse myself in fantasizing about like making the graphics better. Cause like, I don't see how they could get any better. You know, like there was nothing about that game that like was like, and of course that's a stupid statement to make, but there was nothing about the game that was like, oh, that looks janky or anything like that. It was like, it was pristine. So it's like, you know, playing like Zelda Link's Awakening on the original Game Boy is like a strong nostalgia thing for me because I got immersed in the story and that gave the graphics sort of a hallucinogenic, sort of holographic thing going on where I projected.
You filled in the blanks with your imagination.
The story. Yeah. I filled in the blanks. Yeah, there we go. So like people playing original Tomb Raider, they made Laura's boobs like look more like boobs to them in their brain. Yeah. Now they're just boobs.
It's like, the magic of the interpolation that happens in your brain. From those older titles.
I mean, it's funny is I think that might even be part of the reason that video games did have a point where they started to really blow up. Like when the graphics did start getting closer and a lot less jank, the participation went up, because I think that there is also something possibly to be said for the number of people who didn't have that imagination, who just thought it looked like shit and wasn't fun, you know, who kind of had it filled in for them as the games did start getting better. And I think now, I mean, like you said, and I'm sure like 10, 15 years from now, we're going to look back and go, how could we possibly have thought that gaming wouldn't get better? You know, but at the same time, I mean, we can't predict the future. But you know, the point is like everyone making it, everyone who really cares about making it, at least, obviously there are plenty of studios who just like do the same thing. It makes money. But you know, the people who are passionate about it, they want to push the limits. They want to find cool new things to do with it. There's, you know, I mean, ray tracing started becoming a thing, and now everybody's like, oh man, what if we can get like really, really dynamic lighting? I know, Vasily and I have talked about like,
can we talk about ray tracing like really quick? Because like, there's something that like is really interesting about Doom the Dark Ages that I don't think a lot of people realize. Like, there's a lot of people bitching about the fact that the card that it requires a ray tracing card. And people are like, oh, let us turn off the graphics for that. We don't care. They're not just using it for graphics. They're actually using it for collision detection. They're using the fucking ray tracing processors to do like particle collision detection so that they can like, you know, I don't know if you guys have played the game, but like there's a lot of stuff going on screen, tons of collision activity. There's a lot of enemies on screen. And so they're offloading processing from the GPUs to these like specific processors for ray tracing, which is really, really neat. I just thought I'd mention that because I think there's a lot of
somebody in the process of making that figured that out, and the first time they got it to work and work consistently and effectively, they were so excited. Like there's that moment of like personal victory for that person or that team.
It's super cool.
But that's that's how a lot of these guys work. And when it starts to get too stale, the things that break that mold are the things that are made by people who are trying to do that. And it doesn't have to be graphics or anything either. It can be story.
Yeah. No, not at all.
It can be Night in the Woods.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like the walking simulator, the walking simulator did not start as a AAA game. Like that was not how that happened, but it had such a huge effect on gaming. Like it almost feels like Myst back in the day. Like it kind of like made a whole new game allowable again. And Night in the Woods is a great example too. Like that is not. It's like if you were like, what's it? How do you play it? It's like, well,
it's almost a visual novel.
You walk around and jump. Yeah, it's basically a visual novel.
Scroller,
yeah.
And you walk around with this little, essentially just kind of like paper doll, and have interaction points that pop up text bubbles. That's pretty much like it's. It's almost like a step off of being like a King's Quest or something like way back in the day. It's really simple, but it works because somebody wanted to make a really good story. Somebody had a world, they had a vision, they had a character in mind, and they wanted to create an environment and a mood and an experience and a kind of, take you into this social space or this, headspace that they're trying to talk about. And it doesn't have to be graphically impressive. It just connects with people on a personal level, and that's what makes it good. Undertale was another one that did that. Minecraft, when it came out, Minecraft looked like crap. Yeah. When I first saw a Minecraft video, the one that introduced me to the concept of Minecraft, I thought it was like some game from the 90s that just nobody had ever heard of, which knowing how that stuff works now, I can't imagine you would have ever been able to make a game like that in the 90s. But, in my head, it's like, oh, this is all low definition and really basic. Like, there's no way. I was worried like I wouldn't be able to find it. I was afraid like, oh, this is probably going to be something where you have to hunt down some installer that's ancient and unsupported and requires you to run some kind of virtual machine, but it works because it's just Legos. It's just a Lego box. And we didn't have a game like that. I remember, I think it was the Rooster Teeth podcast way back in the day. They used to have like these video game awards that they would just kind of arbitrarily give out to, games they liked or, the people on the podcast thought were cool every year. And they had this argument about whether or not Minecraft was a sandbox game, because before Minecraft, a sandbox game was like Gmod maybe, but otherwise it would have been like GTA 4. So in their heads, like, I don't know, it's not like GTA 4 enough. And somebody made the point like, no. Minecraft is the sandbox game. This is what a sandbox game is. We should be asking ourselves if we can call GTA 4 a sandbox game in light of Minecraft now.
Yeah, absolutely right. What was that game? There was a game that was like, it was more on the end of GTA, but like you had the ability to like attach little rockets to things as part of the gameplay. And like, I remember, do you know what I'm talking about? Like you were a dude and you were like out to fight and do things, but like you had these little rockets and you could attach them to things, and people just like started doing the most terrible things to like all the vehicles, everything. They would just like,
is it Just Cause?
Attach rockets.
Yeah.
Just Cause. So like that starts to get a little bit more sandbox when you can just start doing like crazy things. Like what was it? Tears of the Kingdom. Like the way that had a building system. That's a sandbox game. That's a sandbox game.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's when you can start breaking it with stupid stuff that you kind of get into that territory. And it's funny too, because it's like you look at Zelda and there's a storyline. It's kind of meant to be this like you have a world, you have a character, you have kind of a progression you're meant to follow, but you can add that sort of just game mechanic that you can break infinitely, and that's fun. And sometimes you kind of have to just sit back as an artist and say, why don't I just put something in it that's fun? I think that was a good place where it didn't ruin it, but you could have it didn't ruin the game, but it still added something that was very out of the ordinary for the game experience, because Zelda had an established sort of pace or flow or formula. I mean, this wasn't like an early Zelda game. This is 30 odd years into the Zelda experience. You have an expectation of what a Zelda game might be like, but it was great. Yeah.
And they broke it.
My favorite implementation of like mechanics in games is if they are narratively diegetic, where they are explained within the world and make sense within the narrative itself. And I think Tears of the Kingdom does a great job with that. It's explaining, it's like, hey, this is why you're doing, this is why it's important for the narrative. It's not just a thing that you're doing along with the game. It makes sense, and it helps the whole thing feel cohesive and, like, no pun intended, glued together.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
I think that's important with any art too. It's just,
it's super interesting.
Sometimes you got to step back and have fun with it. You got to remember it's so easy to get too serious, kind of the in line.
You got to have whimsy.
Yeah, in line with like nostalgia. It's also very easy to get like too disenfranchised and too serious and kind of lose sight of things a little bit, because it's another way of just not living in the moment and not, being present, I think.
Sure. I'd say playing a video game that is what do you call it? Playing a video game that is, God, I just lost the word completely. When you cynically made, where you can feel it's just for cash or whatever. That's a really interesting and specific feeling because you're asked to interact with a game in a way that you don't normally interact with other media. And so there really is a sort of betrayal of trust when you sit down for something and you just realize that it's just like, it doesn't give a shit about you. It's there just to like
buying
exist as something that gets
to play GTA 5 online to get all the weird fancy vehicles they've added into this patch, but they won't add anything to single player. Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. And I mean, for me, a good example again is like System of a Down, one of my favorite bands for a long time. But the thing that works about System of a Down is they're out there talking about really, really real shit. I mean, System of a Down, like we're going to write a song about an unrecognized genocide of entire people. And you know what? We're also just going to be really silly. We're going to be really silly guys. We're going to put out a song about pogo sticks or whatever. I mean, it's just, they understood that you could have fun with it and still say really important shit. I mean, that song is on the same album as like Deer Dance or Prison Song. And it's like, it doesn't take away from the experience, but it is important to just have those moments of levity along with those moments of gravity. And I think that, it's easy, it's easy to be cynical in a lot of ways. There's the, just cash grab cynicism, but there's also just the personal cynicism. It's easy to create something that's just kind of aimlessly angry, but not impactful, Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that, that's also something that's good to keep in mind. It's why I like Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. It's a drinking song. Yeah. But Chumbawamba were like real deal, super serious, like anarcho punks,
That's right. I always forget about that. That's
but I think the thing that makes them kind of stand out is that, as I tell my friends, like they understood the importance of that, like, revolution or whatever, the true anarchist kind of mindset. But the one thing they also understood is the point of it is to make people's lives better, to improve people's, communities and experiences and stuff. They have that end goal in sight. You can't just always be in the fight. You got to have that like meaningful kind of, there's a point to it. If you're not trying to make people's lives better, or trying to have that brighter future, then what are you fighting for? What's the point? You know, and I think that they get that in a way that a lot of the kind of more cynical anarcho punk bands kind of missed, you know, which is why I think a lot of them burned out.
You can't be angry all the time. Like, yeah, you can't be angry all the time. And I think righteous indignation is a powerful tool, but it's not the only tool. And I think I've spent most of my life being righteously angry about something, and it's hard to give that up. It's hard for that to not be your only lens that you see the world. I'm 100% guilty. See the world
Finding
through.
joy is punk as fuck.
Yes. Yeah.
It's okay. Like, there's a lot to be righteously angry or indignant
100%.
about. I do believe, though, that like there is. I think that there's a trap that can be fallen into with that, where you. I guess if you're like righteously indignant about it, like you might not be doing something about it. Like that's how I feel about me. It's like I'm almost like at this point. Like I keep righteous indignation as like a defense mechanism for actually having to participate in praxis of any kind. I think that's something that a lot of people, especially like people that participate in social media, can do. I think we can release pressure by posting about things and getting likes on something and about like how we feel about something politically, and then that takes the pressure off, you know, like, and that's all we really need to do. Which sucks. Yeah. It's hard to get over that.
I'm 100%. I feel
it's easy to fall into the personal like catharsis of the. I almost hesitate to say like micro. Oh God, what the fuck's micro? Not protesting.
Machines?
Micro machines. Nano machines, son.
Micro machine.
Yeah.
Oh, very, very different. That's back to the 80s.
Micro activism. Sorry, that's the term I was looking for.
Yeah.
Micro activism. Yeah. Is that in your mind? Is that a different thing than like slacktivism, which is kind of what I'm referring to?
What is slacktivism to you? Like,
just sort of like it's wearing the clothes of somebody who wants change, but not actually participating in anything that like does anything. So like not actually getting organized or like basically like changing your Insta or your Facebook profile to a black square is peak slacktivism.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking with microactivism, slacktivism. Yeah, I think I will actually. Yeah. I actually prefer that term.
It's a good term.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, and it's been around for. It sucks to want change in the world, but feeling like it's almost too big of a thing to start getting involved in. I definitely empathize with anybody.
I think sometimes it's important to just be an anchor in the lives of people you can reach too. I mean, it's like none of us are big enough to change everything, but it's the kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts like mindset a little bit. Like if all your little communities are taking care of each other, eventually that does expand into a broader thing. I mean, it's complicated, and I can't begin to say that I have any answers. I think I'm very much at a place in my life where I'm old enough or experienced enough to know that I'm not experienced enough in anything, that I'm just a dumb person floating through space and trying to survive like anyone else. But it's like I don't have the answers. I can't say what the future should be or what will work. But I can say that shit doesn't work. This is pretty clear. I
think the thing that keeps me from falling into despair regarding like we can't do anything to change the world is that we're all capable of planting seeds, and we can't expect to be the tree.
That's a really good statement. I like
absolutely.
That.
I very much feel that. I think that's a good thing to kind of keep in mind too. Is it's not going to be instant gratification. We're so trained to try to have that and try to want that we don't really have the mindset a lot of times to cultivate and grow something and be patient with it and care for it when it's difficult and when it's a tiny little seedling or a sapling, keeping it safe from the heat of the sun or from drowning in too much rain or whatever. It's one of those things where, people, like you said, you want to plant the seed and be the tree all at once, but it takes ages. It takes generations sometimes. And sometimes the impact you make, you're never going to see. And on some level, you have to trust
absolutely
that you're on the right path and at least make the effort to make the impact you can, even if you won't see its results. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really, really good
I think it's a healthy mindset.
Take solace in where you're presently at and what community you can be a part of. And obviously don't sit idly and be like, oh, I've done enough. No, keep fighting, keep pushing, keep doing what you can do. But
sometimes fighting is just feeding someone who needs food.
I think you can look for opportunities. Yeah, you can look for opportunities and you can create opportunities. And I don't necessarily think it's bad to be somebody who mostly looks for takes opportunities as opposed to creates opportunities. I think that a lot of people are pushed to the brink of to the limits of what they can do, and they're from an energy level, from a financial level and stuff like that. So I think I don't think people should necessarily feel guilty about not being out there always on the front line of everything. I think, but if you can find ways now and then to help make a difference, then that's good. I think you should take those opportunities.
And it's amazing what a difference you can make sometimes by making a little difference in one person's life,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's a really good, really good point.
I've experienced that. And I think a lot of creatives have probably experienced that sometimes, whether they're aware of it or not. I had the conversation about the impact of art and the, what I want out of my creation is I used to be a visual artist. I used to do drawing and sketching and that sort of thing, a lot of traditional art. And there's, I was talking about it with somebody about music in the same way. And it's there's one thing to be said about having 1,000 people say, that's a cool song and give it a thumbs up versus one person who listens to your CD and they write back to you and they say I was on the edge. I was driving, moving 80 miles an hour and I was ready to just turn into incoming traffic and something about your song just clicked, something about what you said or something about just the feeling or the mood it gave me, set me on a different path. And it made me feel it made me aware of my directionlessness or made me aware of something I hadn't thought of or shifted my perspective. And that one thing is going to infinitely matter more than any number of thumbs up and hey, cool songs.
Absolutely. That's part of the reason that I don't really look at comments anymore is because I feel like that will happen if something means something to somebody. You'll get an email, you'll get they'll find a way to contact you and talk to you about that. And that's what those are the things that matter. Those are the situations that really, really matter to me, where you can personally connect with somebody and have a conversation with them one-on-one. And you're absolutely
and I
right.
think it's so easy to get in your head about that as an artist in general, the whatever it may be, imposter syndrome or just being hard on yourself or feeling like your art's never good enough or being under the thumb of the expectations of an audience, whatever it may be. I think it's one of those things that it's so easy to kind of look at something and try to make something disingenuous, to chase something, or to just not realize when something you've made really does make an impact. One of my favorite bands, I interviewed them, or I interviewed him, Adam. It was my second episode, Adam from Fear Before the March of Flames. Fear Before was one of my favorite bands in high school. Fear Before was formative for me in being a young and isolated queer person, not even realizing that Adam himself was writing partially from the perspective of a young, isolated queer person, but it spoke to me in a really serious way. And I did so many drawings to his different songs. And eventually I tagged his current band, All Human, in one of those drawings, which would go on to lead to me actually doing artwork for them, which is really cool. But it was one of those things where I started talking to him, and we had a moment where essentially I've made this artwork that, you know, I'm happy enough with, or I feel a certain way about it. I feel like it's not that great. And I feel like I wish I could make a song like he could. I wish I could write a song that makes me feel the way that his song made me feel. And he's over here in the same boat looking at my art like, I wish I could do that. I wish I could make artwork that portrays the feeling of this song anywhere near as accurately as you did. And having this moment where I had to step back and kind of reassess my perspective, my vision or whatever, in that I have this person who was formative in my life being inspired enough by my art at a point eventually that he wanted to get one of my pieces done as a tattoo. And both of us having this experience where we feel inadequate to measure up to the impression this other person is leaving on us, and having to sit down and really like think about how maybe this is a hang up in my own worldview or my own kind of perspective or my own way of thinking about myself or my art that I need to readdress, you know? And it's a hard thing to do if you're hard on yourself, but this goes back to the problem I was talking about earlier, where you're doing a lot of the stuff in isolation. Like you do not have the direct human interface with the output of what you're making until you do, right? And that's what you ended up having. You collapsed a wave function of sorts, and like you were like, oh, cool. All of a sudden, I've my view of how other people think about my art is like completely different. Like, but when you're making stuff, you know, you're not doing that. You're not having that that interaction. So I don't know of any other way outside of like getting involved in some form of like local, like share your art thing somehow, that you can really counteract that, honestly. I think community is really important. It is something that we've lost a lot, especially these days. And that the third space experience, but also just getting together with people and being in person and being in the moment, you know. LAN parties were something I was talking about with a friend recently, where that Vasily and I actually part of a small group are thinking about doing a little kind of just LAN party and having fun with just like an old playlist and old, you know, games and stuff, just because why not, you know? But it was one of those things where, again, there's a nostalgic aspect of thinking about a thing that's not a thing anymore. It's different, but there was something to be said for the community of getting together with your friends in a room and just spending the whole night playing video games and eating pizza or whatever. You know, tabletop is the same thing. You know, getting together with your D&D friends or whatever. It's a similar, there's something to be said for...
It's when we were ironically less connected. It's when we felt like kind of the most connected to other human beings. Which is like, I know that's like I'm 13 and this is so deep like statement, but like, I genuinely feel that way. So it's one of those things you don't really realize you've lost until it's gone, you know? But I think that, you know, there's, again, going back to not letting nostalgia rule you, there's a point to be made about not trying to go back to it, but taking what was good about it and adapting it into your vision of your life in the future going forward, you know, learning from it and doing something different and better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's all we can really do. I can't imagine living any other way, and I'm scared of accidentally living some other way from that. Like I worry as I've gotten, you know, more safe and secure in my life with material stuff, like material conditions, that like I lose sight of
important shit,
of
personal
something that was inherent.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something that was inherent to me when I struggled more with I guess like it was more of a class thing. It's like, I do worry at least that like, comfort is antagonistic to change. And I think like it doesn't have to be, but I do think that there's a momentum that has to be, or an inertia that has to be like kind of overtaken at that point.
It's easy to fall into.
Like, it's so intrinsic for us to be like, yeah, you're just like, well, I'm fine. I'm okay. Like your brain literally stops like yelling at you more when you're feeling more safe, and that's that's something that we all kind of like want to. We all want that. We all want to feel safe and secure, and like that we have what we need to survive. So we're all working towards that, which is kind of ironic that once we get it, maybe we like don't quite have the same connection that we might have with other people. There's like I was watching like an AI generated video yesterday on YouTube because it was just like something that was interesting to me. I know, like there's a lot of these now. It got me because it was like, had a really sci-fi name for the title. And it was about a device used in the 3-body problem. Have you watched that show?
I have not yet, which is really ironic for the fact that my band's album like 2 years ago is named for something in the book. Yeah.
So there's this weapon, spoilers for 3-body problem. There's this weapon that the one of the antagonist groups uses against the human race and our our solar system, that basically it collapses space-time into 2 dimensions. And it's very bad. It's very bad to take a 3-dimensional structure and squish it to 2 dimensions. But there's an interesting, they talk about like the physics behind it. And so basically everything wants to move to a low energy state. That's what entropy is. So things that have energy want to not have energy. They want to sort of like become cold and exactly. So the reason this weapon works is because once a little bit of stuff gets collapsed to 2-dimensional space, that has less energy in it, and then it's just sort of like spreads this 2-dimensional collapse. But when he was when the voice, because it wasn't when the narration was explaining when it was explaining the concept of entropy, the thing like the things that still have energy that will eventually at some point enter a less energetic state. They're called metastable. So the sun is a metastable. Like we are metastable. Like most atoms are metastable. And I think that like that's kind of how I want to stay. I want to stay metastable. I never want to become totally and like last stage entropic, for whatever that means for a human being, whether or not that's like trying to learn something new, trying to stay engaged with the world, trying to make sure that my beliefs
stagnant
don't get stagnant. I want to be metastable. And I certainly don't want to get collapsed down to 2 dimensions.
Absolutely.
That would be very
get cold and sad.
I think, I mean, it's one of those things too. There's something to be said for excess versus stability as well, which is like there is a point at which, with wealth or something. I mean, Vasily especially can attest to this. Like me, we both live in a very, very affluent place. I mean, it is extremely wealthy, and we grew up around a lot of very, very wealthy people.
Sure.
And there is something to be said about the way that you reach a certain point in life and it kind of becomes meaningless. It's Notch, after he sold Minecraft, talks about how like he partied a bunch and then he just became really lonely and bored and depressed because now he had nothing to work for or accomplish.
Have you seen Have you seen the subreddit not LinkedIn Lunatics? That's fun, but Zello Gone Wild.
Oh my god, it's it's so ridiculous.
Okay, so it's like it's half and half. Like what the fuck is wrong with this place? And usually the answer is it's a cult compound. But it's also just like really ostentatious, like rich houses, like mansions and stuff. And I look at these places and I'm like, how do you live here? How do you inhabit this space and your brain say, yep, this is comfortable. Yeah. And it's not necessarily because it's like ultra modern or something like that. Like I love that, but it's just sort of like the amount of space and the way it's presented, it's just like insane. Like, and so, like you said, like, Notch could buy whatever he wanted, but like
at a certain point, what are you accomplishing? And all your friends still have lives and jobs and families. And you're just sitting there playing the same game all day, waiting for your friends to get off work, and it's like being at that level is basically, it's like playing any video game in God mode or Minecraft in creative mode. And I've told people over and over again, it's like, you will not enjoy wealth if you get bored playing Minecraft in creative mode with no goals or end game. Because if you can't sit down organically, naturally, spontaneously create a vision for yourself that you can live up to or work towards or, make happen, if you don't have that direction, then everything you have is just stuff. If you do have that direction, though, you have tools. Yeah. You have tools to make things happen. You have the ability to do something bigger and more interesting or more helpful or more useful or whatever. But I think a lot of people who have that mindset can't really reach that level because there is something to be said about the way that level most of the time is not achievable for somebody who is in motion, in that way, who has that like vision. Yeah.
It's like, it's a self-selecting process, sort of like I believe that there's a weird self-selection thing that happens there, in some way. Like, you don't normally get super, super crazy rich by doing the right thing.
Harder, pulling up your bootstraps. Yeah.
You get really lucky, I guess. Maybe. And that's about it. Yeah.
Generational wealth, luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd actually kind of like to cut in with an anecdote here. So early in my life, I grew up in a first generation Slavic household. My mom was from Kazakhstan. My dad was from Moscow. Soviet Union collapsed, and they fled the country. Basically, my dad was a Eastern Orthodox painter for the church, so he was able to get citizenship easier because there was a demand for that. So, very lucky there from like a very specific skill.
That's such a cool. That's such a cool thing. Job. I've never heard of anybody having that job before. That's really neat.
Really niche. Yeah. And
the church is very particular as well. You can't just like hire any random artist off the street.
It's the most gate-kept art in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. They have very specific requirements and expectations of the icons that you paint for the churches and stuff. So yeah,
I wasn't allowed to paint icons like in my house, for example. Like it was that it was basically like, no, you can only do it this way. But anyways, so kind of moving on from that, my stepfather, he's a doctor. I was kind of adopted into wealth, like going from very poor to very rich very quickly. And being in that survival mode from like an early age to in that wealthy age, I felt constantly uncomfortable and the most directionless is when I had like the most available to me.
Yeah.
And now that I'm living by myself and have to support like a partner and like pay bills and live for myself, this is when I'm feeling like the most, have the most direction is now that I'm like, I have to support myself. I'm not comfortable. And I kind of find joy in that discomfort a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's a level to it too. There's of course the difference between struggling and the difference between staying alive, But I feel that because I had a very similar experience. I mean, I grew up in a military family. We weren't rich. We didn't make lots of money. The Army doesn't pay well. But we did live on base, and we saved up some money, and we had some support from my grandparents who were more wealthy, and we had that as a fortunate aid to us. But we moved here to this town before it got really expensive, as it blew up really hard, really fast. But we got, it was above the national average for a house this size, but it was a very much affordable house for, a family that makes what we made. And we settled in and got to do a lot of really cool stuff and be very comfortable in our lifestyle for a long time. And it was the same thing. It's like, I got to do the various cool extracurricular stuff, and we had all kinds of like little opportunities that were really cool. And we were very stable and very comfortable and surrounded by immense wealth. I mean, it was a normal experience for like my brother or I to hang out with one of our friends and just go over, and they had this 7,000 square foot home with an elevator in it. That's just normal. That was a normal experience here. It's just like, it's one of those things where it does kind of give you that like weird, like directionless, aimless kind of, you're just kind of floating through life in a lot of ways. And if you're not in the moment, you really don't get to appreciate how special a lot of these things are. And then when I moved out, it was very much the opposite. When I moved out, I was living off my savings and struggling to pay bills. Like I said earlier, I mean, I spent 8 months with my gas turned off, in Alaska. It's cold. It's cold. It's rainy even in the summer.
So I've heard. How long did you?
Years. It was.
I have. How crazy are you now? Like, are you crazier now than you were before you moved to Alaska?
It's really hard to say. Everyone's got their own special flavor of crazy. But if what you're asking is,
Alaska
I was
crazy?
a furry before I went there, so no.
Oh no! I mean, that must have been interesting too. No, but like the light situation. Everyone that I've met from like that was born in Alaska and grew up was a bit of an odd.
It's an odd place in part because it's very much away from everything else. It's a small population in a huge place. It's 750,000 people living in 2/5 of the United States. And then it's of course far away.
Wild.
It's out there. It's totally kind of isolated socially in a lot of ways. So it has its own like all the normal stuff gets up there. And it is really funny because I've told people over and over again, like Alaska is in so many ways exactly how people imagine it and absolutely nothing at all like people imagine it. Like I had a coworker who would come to work with a dog sled on the roof of his car because he just casually ran dog sleds as a hobby. But we also had gigabit internet throughout Anchorage before any other city had it rolled out.
Oh,
wow. Like Google Fiber was kind of starting to pop up in a couple pockets in a couple neighborhoods. And then GCI went through and just said, we're going to lay out fiber over the whole county. And then they started rolling it like all over the state. So we had like gigabit fiber before most people had even had the chance to like look into Google Fiber. But we also still had like, I would chase bears off my porch, like stuff like that too. So it's very much a wild experience. The light is really funny because I have extreme light sensitivity and I don't respond to like daylight cues because I tend to like live in a curtained space.
Oh, interesting.
I kind of have to. I tell people I'm essentially allergic to the sun. But it's funny because I think.
How did you feel about the movie 30 Days of Night? Is that
it depends where you're at in the state. We had daylight every day of the year where I was at. But we had shorter days for sure. Noticeably I didn't realize it was for sure. And we did have like it wasn't 24 hours of sunlight, but it was 21 hours of sunlight with about 3 hours of this sort of like dawn, dusk, like dim light in between. Yeah.
That's wild.
And the summers threw me off, I think, even more than the winters for that reason. Because the winter still had like a defined, this is daytime. We had like 5.5, 6 hours of daylight and then nighttime for the rest of it. And the sun went down really early, but like there was still a distinguishable, this is day, this is night. Day feels like day, night feels like night. If you're far enough up north, you definitely have the like the sun goes down and then it doesn't come up for like 40 days or whatever. And then likewise, the sun comes up and it does not go down for 40 days. And for a lot of people who do take their cues from like daylight, it is really weird. Like I got to watch various other friends who moved up from other places. A lot of Alaskans come from other places. You know, like most of my coworkers at my old job are from like Michigan and Montana and, you know, like Indiana or whatever. There was very few who were just like always in Alaska. But yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where the daylight, you kind of have to get used to it a little bit, and you kind of can't because it is just so weird. You know, if you've been like that your whole life, it'll feel less weird for sure. But it took a minute to get used to the strange feeling of there just being daylight all the time. You know, yeah, it was a really cool experience. I do miss Alaska a lot. I think it was probably one of the coolest places I've lived, and probably the closest to home I've ever felt in America, at least. I've lived outside of the United States as well and kind of felt more at home there than here, but it's in the United States at least.
Where outside the US
I lived
did you
in
live?
Germany, and then I tell people that I lived in the fictional nation of Italy.
The fictional
As a
nation of
callback
Italy.
to
That is such a niche joke that nobody will fucking understand.
Yeah, me and you and whoever was in that stream. And then some of my friends that I passed it on to. But yeah, I lived in Germany for 3 years and Italy for 4. And I grew up there when I was a lot younger. So a lot of my kind of formative years as a child was overseas. And it was a little bit of a third community thing. But
where in Germany were you?
I was
in Germany were you?
A really small town in the like wider like Rhineland area. So kind of near Frankfurt, Kaiserslautern, that area. So yeah, like kind of south central, kind of on the western border. I think we were like 15 minutes from the French border. So not super far off there. But yeah, that general region.
Wow, that's wild.
And then in Italy, we were up in the north. We were in Vicenza, which was a very cool place in and of itself. In part because you could kind of see the like distant like Dolomites, the kind of almost foothills of the Alps.
Oh yeah,
off in the horizon, which was really cool as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's super cool.
Alaska it's a really unique place, and that's kind of what I liked about it. And at least where I was at and a lot of the communities I was in, there was a very creative kind of undertone. And because it was kind of isolated, it kind of filtered out a lot of the like people trying to make it, because it's really hard to make it in Alaska. You know, I mean, you're just so cut off from all those like gatekeepers that you have to get through, and you can do it. You know, I mean, just look at Portugal the Man. They had that huge hit that was everywhere. I mean, they were from like Wasilla or whatever, but I mean, it was, you know, if you want to make it in Alaska, you had to get a reality TV show. But there were a lot of just like really cool creative people who just did it for themselves. And the community was all just kind of really weirdly tight knit. So like people who made country music were always telling you about their favorite metal band they saw. And the metal bands were all aware of the like weird hippie stoner rock bands. And they all knew all the like rappers, and they knew the like kind of pop star guys and stuff. There was a kind of just like it's Alaska music. It's kind of like the way that the furry music scene is. You know, it's like a bunch of people with different styles and sounds and kind of influences. They're just kind of like, you know, I mean, I may not be a metal guy, but I am an Alaskan musician. I'm part of that community. I'm part of that experience, in the same way that, you know, you talk to a couple different furry musicians, and one of them's a pop guy and one of them's, you know, like a folk guy. And they're like, I mean, we share the experience of being in this community, so we have that in common, even though we have very different influences and styles. And so there is something about that I like, when you can kind of, you get more creative stuff when you mix people up like that, when you don't let those kind of hard genre boundaries and stuff divide people into their own little camps. you know?
It's kind of like the Brony / Living Tombstone era, where it's like you don't have one particular genre or one particular style, but you do have like an expectation of the presentation of art and music that came from it. Yeah, it seems like, I mean,
Hello?
I have a very surface level understanding of a lot of like furry musicians. Like, I think my like kind of greatest, or my whole experience is with like Kitsune Squared. Kitsune Squared. Yeah. And that I've listened to that circle and been part of that. And there's a lot of from bleed in from like the demo scene era stuff, which I grew up a lot with in high school. Like I really, really like demo scene music. And yeah, there's tons of bleed in from the furry community.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, even just look at that set you put out from FWA, your DJ set, like all the artists you chose for that are totally like disparate sounds and styles and influences. You had all kinds of stuff going on there.
Yeah, I mean, and I made it into, I homogenized genre to an extent, right? Like the input was a lot more diverse than what it ended up as. But that's in what do you? Yeah, that's the nature of a dance music set. I think genre can be a really, really useful tool for posthumously, so to speak, understanding categories, components of music. So like if you are starting out and you want to sort of like say, I really like, this type of electronic music. I was like, okay, well, that's in this genre. You can go and you can study it and you'll learn a lot about it. But I do think that there was a good point made, Vestonic, that like genre is kind of it has the ability to separate people, like be like, especially in metal, like it feels like it's like, oh, I fucking hate that kind of metal. Everyone that likes it's a piece of shit. It's like there's like weird genre lines that get drawn. Yeah, exactly.
Metalcore isn't real metal. You got to listen to the real Thal stuff. The true
Encyclopedia Metallica community is very, very diehard on like what is and what isn't metal. It's a very, very strong personality community.
Yeah, very, very opinionated. Which for me is like, I just like metal. I grew up with whatever. I just want shit that's heavy. I don't give a shit if it's like, poppy emo core or gent or some like really super like lo-fi underground black metal or classic thrash or like first wave of British heavy metal. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I just want shit that's fun and sounds. But I mean, I listen to any genre in general. One of the reasons that I get along so well in scenes like the furry music scene or the Alaska music scene, which are very kind of mix and match and everyone's kind of all over the place doing their own thing together, is that I like just music. I like any music. I just want to hear stuff that feels inspiring or different or interesting, and I want to be surrounded by interesting art, which is probably part of the reason I've been seeking out more and more weird stuff these days. Like, okay, I think I've heard a lot of what you can expect from standard 12-tone, comfortable pop chord, whatever it is, riffs and breakdowns. I want stuff that's just ridiculous, over the top, really in your face. I want more of the the Ida Deers or the Patricia Taxon or the and I mean, I love stuff that's very conventional as well still, but I just like when I can hear something that surprises me or catches me off guard or even just blends elements that I don't hear together most of the time. And I don't know. For me, it's an adventure. I think the thing that you mentioned earlier about like Alaska and how like you are all sort of like, it was more of a community than it was like, and there was more intermingling. Like that's such a powerful thing. I can see why like you think of that fondly, think of that with nostalgia. Cause like once you get out into the, not Alaska, like it's literally just all about like drawing lines between everybody and every way that you possibly can. Oh yeah, no, I remember like the Salt Lake scene when I was in high school, and it's like I'd go to underground shows all the time, and it's like you'd have people fucking fist fighting, throwing hands over, the shitty deathcore band versus the real black metal band or whatever. There's there was so much like weird division and tribalism at times. And of course, not everybody's like that, obviously. There are plenty of shows you could go to and people are just like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's hang out and do some music. I mean, lots of great stuff. But, you know, there was a more like tribalistic kind of genre divided mindset. I mean, part of that is even the consumerism of genre. You know, it's really easy to compartmentalize it, formulate it, sell it, look for it, distill it, and make it into a product. And there is some amount of that when you mix it with that kind of tribalism, it becomes this like identity brand, you know, brand identity thing that happens. And metal, unfortunately, and quite ironically, is very bad about that.
I don't know what it is about that. I think electronic music is certain types of dance music are like that too. Like there was a post on I think it was either DJ Circle Jerk or EDM Circle Jerk. Everything I'm telling you about, I'm telling you from Reddit. This is a bad thing. I listened to it up later, like 6 times. But it was that meme of the Grim Reaper going to different doors and knocking on them, and you know, put in And so it was like the Grim Reaper was the American EDM scene, and the doors that people were knocking on were like different genres that had been killed by the American EDM scene.
Because like garage, dubstep, like
they killed dubstep, they killed tech house, and they were coming for techno next, which we've already killed techno. But,
that was ages ago.
But like the comments were so wild because it was just like all of these people who I guess they care about electronic dance music of various genres, but just like saying like, oh yeah, drum and bass has already been killed. Like dubstep is still alive. Like all these like people talking about how like their concept of what the genre, they were talking about like music genres, like not but they were really talking about their personal bubble of a scene and like how it had been either co-opted and killed or, you just weren't looking in the right place kind of thing. And it was just like all this weird infighting about like what was authentic and what wasn't.
Yeah.
And I've seen other memes about like, oh, your girlfriend drags you out to DJ night and they're playing like the top tracks off of the Beatport Tech House, like chart. Like it's a bad thing. And I'm like, look, I get it. But like how far into a scene do you need to be where you just stop enjoying it? Because that's what it seems to an extent. Like it's odd to me. It's almost better to like not get deep into something just so that you can kind of enjoy it and not be told that like there's a right way to enjoy it and a wrong way to enjoy it.
You're kind of gatekeeping your own pleasure, and that's a miserable way to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That one of the things about DJing was that like I got too close to that. I got too close to like, what was the right way to play music? What was the wrong way to play music? What music should you play? How should you play it? Where should it be played? That kind of thing. I understand to an extent why like you don't want to go out for like necessarily you don't want to go to like a Castro bar and then hear like, Belgian techno. Some people would, but most people don't. That's not their expectation.
I've not everyone's like me.
I've been stuck in the trap before, like the mental trap of like, this is prog house and this is progressive house. And for a while,
oh my God, there's a fucking difference?
There's a fucking difference. Yeah. Because prog house is mainstream festival stuff and progressive house is like Anjuna beat stuff. And I was like, wait, I have fucking brainworms. This is stupid. I need to stop thinking like this because I was just gatekeeping my own pleasure.
One of them's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. That's too far. I need to be able to tell people, like, if someone comes to me and says, I want to make music, electronic music, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you like? And they bring a certain artist to me, I'll be like, okay, well, this is this genre, and this is a genre you can study more. That's really, really useful. Like, but obviously, when it starts to become something that you like, exclude people and people from like because of that, or a type of person from, I think that's pretty wild to do. Yeah, I guess we're just kind of like we're automatically like hardwired towards tribalism. Like that just seems to be something that we have in us.
Monkey brain shit. Yeah,
monkey brain. Yep.
It's so stupid, but it's so universal.
genre is really, really useful for shorthand categorization and understanding immediately what like you're seeking out of a piece of like art or music. But it's important to recognize that you are ignoring a little bit of nuance when you're doing that, and that's okay if you're just shorthand. But once you're getting into it, it's important to go into like the artists within that circle or genre, and then their influences and their backgrounds and what makes them stand out, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you like you have some people like I'm watching the new Shintaro Watanabe anime Lazarus.
I need to see that. Yeah.
Well, just hold off a bit because right now I bought the season on streaming, a pay-per-view thing. I bought the first season. You can get it on a couple different platforms, but Adult Swim, who's the main distributor of it, is not releasing the Japanese versions until a month after every single episode is aired, only in American. So I fucking downloaded this ready to have, an experience, and it just, there's no way to watch it subbed right now, which sucks. Like I think especially especially Shintaro Watanabe's stuff, like they're really good at getting voice actors that are iconic, like the Japanese voice actor for Spike Spiegel, and I think they also did Space Dandy, and like the Japanese voice actor for Space Dandy is just iconic voice actors, even if you don't necessarily know what they're saying. But anyways, the soundtrack for this is done by, there's a really famous saxophonist and composer who did the main theme. And then Bonobo and Floating Points are doing the fucking soundtrack for the show itself. Cause like there's this chase song and I'm like, what the fuck? This is really good. And I looked it up and it was like, it was two amazing musicians. And those are two musicians who like you can't put them in a box. You can't say, Bonobo is this genre or Floating Points is this genre. They are not like that. And you have to kind of like understand a lot about like where they came from and what their influences are to kind of get a sense of what they might be, what you might start to like categorize them as, I guess.
Yeah.
I really appreciate musicians like that in the electronic scene. I think they're really more interesting than people who are like, this is, I make this and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's fine to make this and that's it if that's what you're actually passionate about. I mean,
oh, totally. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you're not implying otherwise, but I mean, there is something to be said. Like sometimes there's a band who can just kind of never change their sound and it's just good. I just like hearing it every time. August Burns Red pretty much sounds the same as they did 20 years ago, but they're really good at what they do and they do what they like to do. And every time they put out a record, I'm here for it and I'm ready. I mean, just ask Steve. Yeah. Steve's another like ABR fan, but then, sure. Like Switchfoot was a band that I listened to. And I remember discovering them back when they were kind of like real light, very acousto-electric, like alt rock. And they started like doing really different sounds on every album, but they were doing stuff that, again, they liked doing and had fun making. And so you listen to something from the last couple of years, it will not sound like Switchfoot in 2004, but they still do what they want to do and have fun with it. And I think that sincerity, whether you're doing the same thing or really pushing yourself or going really crazy like Devin Townsend, the sincerity, I think, is the thing that makes it deliver. It's something where you can kind of feel when somebody cares about their art. As stupid as it sounds, genuinely, I think that there is something there that we can kind of pick up on subconsciously. Yeah. I'm a Coldplay apologist. Like I actually
their new album's good. Their new album's good. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to check it out. I haven't checked it out yet, but so I will go to bat for them in some cases. But I do realize that, like, even as somebody who has been touched by a fair amount of their music, like Sky Full of Stars, which they did like as with Avicii, is like one of the most cynical, fucked up, stupid, just like brain dead cash grab things they've ever done, and it's terrible. Yeah. And I hate it, and it ruins it, and it ruins the album. Same thing like with like that K-pop collab they did. It's just like this is a move done not because you wanted to write a song for yourself. It's because this was going to make money, and I hate that. I hate when a band that you like that obviously has the capacity for doing really, really real stuff makes a choice like that. I think that's really shitty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally feel that. And I think it's good to, I think it's good to not let some of that ruin it too much too, because I've had plenty of that experience with bands as well. But I absolutely feel that same way. I won't turn on a band like at the drop of a hat unless they like just get people. Really stupid. Yeah, I can't. I don't care about Radiohead anymore. Like I can't listen to Radiohead anymore. Like the band has been ruined for me, and that's really fucked up. Because
me with Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Oh my god, did you all watch the newest season of Love, Death, and Robots?
No,
I have not.
Oh,
yet.
Okay.
I've been told to, but I have not yet.
Do you like the show?
I watched season 1 and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, David Fincher, for some fucked up reason, decided to make what was the first episode of this new season a Red Hot Chili Peppers music video. And that's it. Like it was a Red Hot Chili Peppers music video for a song that came out like 10 or 20 years ago, or a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody was like, what the fuck is this? Like, why did you do this? And now Netflix has actually moved it to the last episode.
So the whole thing. We don't want people clicking off now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so dumb. Like it's incredibly dumb. You're not alone in not being able to stand them anymore. It's the U2 album on your iPhone thing again. Yeah. And again, I was a U2 apologist too, like far into their career when people were like, they're done. But yeah,
a lot of their early stuff, again, kind of faced real topics and real stuff.
It was seminal, I think.
They really just kind of slumped, as people. It just became sort of like, this feels sad, watching U2 just sort of become a commodity feels really sad, Yeah.
It's the problem of scale and it's the problem of money. I think that large scale has what's the word? I want to use it, but I don't know how to say it. Is it deleterious? Is it that? Deleterious. Yeah. Deleterious effect on mostly anything, because it's really difficult to scale without capital. And once capital gets involved in helping something scale, capital expects a return on investment. So that's kind of you get too big, then you're going to have a problem. It's like, I was thinking it was the person who made the video game Ori and the Blind Forest, maybe the video game creator for that, had a tweet thing recently where they said that Ori, or one of the games that they made, it was published by a big publisher, but they got like a $10 million investment from this publisher. So not really indie, but like, and the game sold 2 million copies, or it was sold enough to make $2 million. And they got like $300,000 from that. Like that's how much they made off of like what they got back. And but the game did sell well and reached like a lot of people. So the scale worked, but like it didn't come back to them or work. It's just like, I think at some point there is a way to get too big for your ability to really still to do well in that situation, I guess is the best.
It's hard to fight back against, which I think going back again to the Kurt Cobain experience, I think that's what he was going through. Just now there is capital. Now people are hanging on his every word for every band in the universe to sign to the major labels and stuff. And it's like, there's a sort of weird expectation where you become part of that death of your own vision. And I mean,
I don't know enough about Kurt to say exactly how he felt as things started to get bigger.
Of course,
I'm sure he's got quotes that could be, you could glean something from that, but like, it must be rather terrifying. Then, we still don't know him, right? Yeah, but it must be very terrifying to get basically put on a vehicle that you aren't driving anymore. I guess I don't know, like, if anyone is really prepared for something like that. I don't think any of us could really.
No,
I don't think you can be. Yeah.
I made one, like, Unbeatable started, it was 5 people. It was 2 kids from high school with like a big vision, and then suddenly we have like 35 contractors, and we're published under PlayStack, and it's just this huge thing that's it's still incomprehensible to me, and something I'm very thankful that like producers exist for, because it's like I can't handle the admin. I just want to make music. That's all I want. And I'm thankful I'm in a position where I can just make music and sound for this game and not have to deal with the administrative bullshit, because it's a lot.
And it's just it's gotten so
very
big
common
so fast. Like so much of that has blown up and happened even in the time between now and the last time you were on the podcast with us talking about it. Like it's crazy. Yeah.
And the whole community thing too, it's like something I don't know if I can get used to. It's like the Discord has 10,000 people in it, and I remember when
holy shit
380 people in it, and it's like I still want to be able to talk in this Discord like I'm just a guy, and it's really, really hard. There's just a huge imbalance of it. And it's I don't know how you do it, Jeremy. I really don't.
narrow scope. Like narrow your scope of involvement. I mean, and take breaks, you know, like your energy levels and your energy direction are still, when you can control them, do what you need and want to do with it, you know, like and if you need to take a break from something like the Discord or talking online, like you're just allowed to do that. Like you never have to be, for the most part, you never really have to be engaged in the way that I think a lot of us think that we need to. I narrow my scope. I don't look at comments, and I just make stuff and try to do the best at that. And then I do fret all the time. Like there are numbers that I cannot escape. Like even though I try not to look at like how videos are doing, because it really makes me depressed because they don't do anywhere near what my subscriber count is. Like so I avoid that. There's a little number that tells me how many people are on the Discord. I try to avoid that, but it's like really hard for me to like see whether or not people are leaving or not, because that's like, you know, there's a pay gate for the Discord, so it indicates to me that somebody has like probably left the Patreon, but I don't know. And then there's the Patreon numbers. It's like I log in to post something to Patreon for patrons, and I have to look at the number of like how much I'm making, you know? And every single time I encounter one of those things, I get nervous because I'm like, you know, is this the day where like, you know, I have to acknowledge that I can't do this anymore?
Right. There's a threat to livelihood, which is scary. It's terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And trusting that. I mean, it's tough. Again, I don't think you can ever be prepared for that. I think you can go through it for 10, 20 years. There's so many producers I've met who they're way at the top of their game. These are guys who are doing like huge, you know, charting records, like multiple charting records every single year. And every single one telling you like, I'm afraid that my work is going to dry up tomorrow. I'm afraid I'm going to wake up tomorrow and no one will ever hire me again.
Yeah. Like this is the same thing for like front of house and monitor engineers and other people that are involved in like concert tours and stuff like that. It's like, you just don't know. Like you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. And that sucks. That really, really sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to just like be comfortable enough to never worry about tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
But that's such an insanely rare.
The looming uncertainty is difficult, impossible to shake.
Yeah. What's really bothers me, and I'm gonna have to chat here in a smidge. So we should find a way to wrap it up. But what bothers me is that like it feels like, and this is actually maybe a bit of consolation to anybody that is in a position where, terrible consolation, but anyone who's in a position where they feel like this could be taken away from them at any moment. Everybody's in that position now. There is no security in any job anywhere anymore. Like it fucking sucks. Like the tech industry used to be a place where you could like get a job, you know, as like for one of the FANG companies or something like that. And just like, you'd be good. Like, and that's gone now.
The
like,
scale of layoffs is unprecedented. It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's something we've never seen before, even during Great Depression eras where it's like there was cutoffs. It's like, this is, and it's something that really, really irritates me about the video game industry is the lack of acknowledgement of layoffs on these game studios, of these wonderful artists and writers, 3D modelers, like, and all these studios, and they're just like expected to move to another city, you know, get uprooted, and then they get laid off. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all in this boat. I mean, we're struggling with this together. We all have to survive. You know, we have the same needs as each other. We still need to eat. We still need to drink. Still need shelter. We still need to have that security. And it doesn't go away. It's not something the majority of us will ever feel totally secure in, but that is why the importance of community and mindset and all of that stuff is so high. It's so easy to just spiral. It's so easy to let it just consume you and lose track of everything. I mean, and especially when you're in the public eye in any way, when you have some kind of group of people watching you go through it, it's bad enough going through it on your own. It's got to be way scarier with a whole giant eye just constantly observing this day to day, just you're a person living your life as a person, you know?
Yeah. Well, just put on a fursuit head, and now they don't know who you are.
Yeah, there you go.
But it has to be an entire fursuit. No partials are allowed.
Oh, God.
Did you hear about that, or did you just joke about that?
No, I'm aware. I'm aware.
Okay, yeah.
The dead heat of July. That's cool.
Oh my God. Poor kids. Nobody's gonna understand that.
So there's a big furry convention in Pittsburgh.
I think it's Pittsburgh. Yeah. Anthrocon.
Yeah.
It's the big one.
Anthrocon.
A lot of people are familiar. Anthrocon.
So they have the fursuit, a literal fursuit parade, like parade, because there's so many suitors. FWA didn't have one this year. And maybe even like not last year either, because it's just like at this point there are so many fucking fursuits. Like it's crazy. It's
ridiculous.
Yeah. So in like and that's great. Like it's awesome. It makes the con more fun. Like you know. So they have this parade outside, and it's huge, and they have they make people like wait for like hours just to like walk down the street. And this year they're making some pretty dumb rules. They're like, you can't have a partial. Now they're saying you can have a partial, but you can't show skin.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Which is again,
that's not
just
even backpedaling. It's just still stupid.
It's weirder. Yeah, it's actually weirder. And the thing that I picked up on was, so by the way, Pittsburgh in this time of year is hot. It's very hot. And for those of you who haven't worn a fursuit, from what I understand, it is very warm to be inside one. Saying that you can't have a partial and then making people wait outside in like the Pittsburgh heat for like hours. So now the other thing that I picked up on is that they have a no flag. Two things. They say no flags, and also there are no handlers. So a handler is there to help a suitor who maybe has limited visibility. It's not just for people who have disabilities or children. Like regular people have handlers. Sometimes their suits are so elaborate that they cannot move without they can't see where they're going to an extent.
Yeah. It's somebody who keeps you from tripping over things, running into people.
Gives you water if you need it. There's a lot of things that they can help with. And so they ban handlers. They're saying that like that way there's more room for suitors. If you have disability, they'll still use a handler, but still, it's kind of stupid. And then they banned flags, saying that they are a safety concern because people will carry them and you can't see, like they can block vision or something like that. So it's like they banned the people that could help with that, and then they also banned the things. It's just like
this is a double standard for safety. Yeah,
there's I had an immediate take that they don't want people flying Palestinian flags. That was my very first take. And then somebody else was like, yeah, my first take was they don't want people flying a bunch of pride flags because they're worried they're going to get there's going to be targeting for that. Both of those suck so bad.
They saw Eurovision's decisions and were like, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do that too.
Yeah. And everybody's upset. Yeah.
I don't think people are pushing back around a Bluesky post I made stating this and that, you're jumping to conclusions and stuff like that. But I don't really think it's really that much of a stretch to imagine that they don't want any kind of political statement being made during their
the organizers for Anthrocon have a well documented history of trying to be very specifically presentable and having optics as a
okay, gotcha.
Flag in the wind centrists.
Yeah. There's
that makes more
very
sense.
much a history there that a lot of people are aware of a desire to present a specific way and be presentable in a specific way. So it is not a stretch to look at that and draw that conclusion. Yeah.
I did learn something interesting, that flags, the flag emojis, do not appear. Let's see. They do not appear on Chrome desktop. Someone said that what was it? They say flags are occasionally contentious, and some operating systems, apps, etc., avoid said contention by just not showing flags. Full stop. So if you Chrome desktop will not show flag emojis, which is why I think people started switching to using the watermelon for Palestinian stuff.
Oh,
fun shit.
Yeah. No kidding, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. I was really excited to have you on specifically because I think you especially are somebody who has a lot of interesting insights and are also just, in my experience, quite free with your kind of just viewpoints and generally willing to just sit down and talk, which is exactly the kind of thing I want with this podcast.
Can't shut me up.
That's what I was hoping for. I want to surround myself with interesting people. And so having you as our first guest with this sort of renewal, I think is absolutely perfect. So I'm really thankful that you were able to take the time to talk to us and everything. And
my pleasure.
If you want to plug anything, feel free. No shame.
Yeah, just Red Means Recording is my YouTube channel. I have music on all the services as Jeremy Blake. And then there's the Leashes project.
Listen to Leashes.
Leashes is awesome.
Instinct is the one that you'll find probably most poppy.
Fear is my personal favorite. I think that song is just incredible. It's not even a metal song, but it's got that metal. It feels metal. The attitude is there, and I love that.
I wanted Steve to. I was talking to Steve about doing a metal version of that. Maybe someday we'll
need
do
that.
Yeah,
I need to pressure him on that. I want to have Steve on here at some point too. Steve is
do it, please. Yeah,
way
absolutely.
too awesome
Steve
not to host. I've had Goji on before. I want to bring them back. So yeah, there's so many really cool, talented people that I think deserve to have a time to just sit down and chat. And whether you're nerding out about the world or your opinions on nostalgia or just gear, it doesn't matter. I want to have lots of cool people on, and you're very much one of the cool people that is just easy to talk to because you and I and Vasily, I think all have very similar kind of viewpoints or ideas or goals or just whatever. I think click very well. So having you on for me was sort of a personal goal. So thank you for being generous with your time and coming on and actually chatting. I would definitely have to bring you back.
As someone who's been brought to tears several times by your music, Jeremy, it's been really cool to talk to you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And on that emotional note.
That is very nice to hear.
And on that emotional note, everybody have a good morning, night, or evening.
Take it easy, y'all.
Bye.